We realized as we went that our relationship with our kids was more important than the strict discipline. It doesn't matter what other people think. It matters how our kids are feeling in the home, how they react to the way we discipline. If we're just yelling at them and getting mad, then they're not learning anything.
Every kid's different. Every personality is different. And so you have to tailor your parenting to them.
Friends are great, but friends are second. You support your family.
He's the one that still tells us we ruined his life. We learned a lot from it.
Let the consequence flow, make your decision, pray about it, and then go with it and see what happens, and then learn from it. So we have 5 kids. We've been married almost 29 years. Our oldest is 27. We have 4 boys and 1 girl. And so our oldest is 27, down to our youngest is 14. And so our girl is number 4. Quinn is our caboose. He's our youngest. And I was done after our 3 boys and girl, but then he convinced me for 1 more. And so, but he's so fun. We love having our little caboose, and he's great. So
awesome. One of the things that really had us interested in reaching out to you guys was you have this great gamut, from your oldest to your youngest. There's a good age range. You've experienced a lot. And I'm wondering, have things changed in parenting between when you were raising your oldest and now with your youngest? Like, are there differences, maybe not just in your parenting style, but in things that they're encountering and you're helping them navigate?
Yeah, everything's changed.
Really?
And our kids will tell you that.
I think, as is any parent, when you start having kids, but you're a little bit more focused intentionally on getting it right. And so when they're younger, I think together, our parenting style was very intense in making sure that we were trying to do everything we were supposed to do and trying to make sure that these little humans turn into be great humans. And I would say definitely as you experience parenthood through your children, your perspective changes on things. You become much more, not as intense, but I guess the word would be intentional. You become much more intentional, not in them alone, but intentional in making sure that they're able to make their choices. And so that changes in your parenting style, and it creates more a need for flexibility. And so I think we've both changed individually and collectively as parents through our children that way. And then I think, look, the elephant in the room, every kid's different. Every personality is different. They don't do well with some tactics versus others. And they just, their own unique way. And so you have to tailor your parenting to them in that unique way, which often implies that you need to potentially get out of the way either. So anyway.
I'd say another thing when you're new parents, at least for me as a mom, I felt a need to prove myself and that I was a good parent. And so proving myself to maybe my parents and in-laws and, the aunts and uncles, and that I was doing it right. And so sometimes that can come across maybe not the best way, right? Because you're trying to overdo it so much. And I think as we've parented more, we've gotten to that point where we realize it doesn't matter what other people think. It matters how our kids are feeling in the home, how they react to the way we discipline. Are they learning from it? Are they not? And because if not, then we're doing it wrong. If we're just yelling at them and getting mad, then they're not learning anything, right? And we used to just get intense, and then it was like, learn this. But and when we realized that tactic didn't really work real well, we didn't get great results. We can't let other people, the way that our parents maybe parented, maybe doesn't work for our kids. And so we just have to do it and figure out our way with our kids.
I'm envisioning, as new parents, I think we kind of focus in and our vision is really narrow. But then over time, we kind of zoom out and realize, micromanaging all of the little decisions isn't what's going to make our kids good people in the long run. We have to give them a little bit of space and recognize that they need to make decisions now, and we can't compel them. It's going to ruin the relationship.
Yeah. And I think that was a biggie. We had to realize And we realized as we went that our relationship with our kids was more important than the strict discipline that they did right and wrong. Like that relationship was that trumped sometimes the strictness of the rule.
And part of it too in parenting is we both come from different backgrounds, different ways that we were brought up and environments in the home, and our perspective of what good parenting is versus not good parenting. And so early on as well, you're trying to mold come together in a very intentional way that mirrors kind of what we want to do as parents rather than what I want to do or what she wants to do, and to come together on that. And that requires some flexibility and coming together, and that requires some learning as well, and a lot of communication and a lot of change in and of itself.
I definitely could see that coming into play. Do you have any anecdotes or like experiences that you guys want to share where it was kind of like the merging of your parenting styles or experiences? How did you guys navigate parenting when you experience conflict?
I'll share one, and then you might have one. But okay. Look, I grew up in a very strict home, very religious home as members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. It was pretty laid out. And I think you would say your home was, your dad was not a member.
Right. And my mom was a convert. I mean, she was a strict convert. Like, she really embraced the gospel. But yeah, I can count probably on one hand how many times we had family night. Like, it was a hard thing to incorporate, right?
Yeah.
Whereas your family, it was a religious experience.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. So I think one experience we had is we had certain rules that we had kind of set up just for family life. And one of the ones that I felt very strongly early on was around entertainment and around how do we teach our kids to be entertained in a good way. And so I had a rule growing up in my home growing up, that we didn't watch any PG-13 movies or rated R or anything like that. And I felt like, okay, well, I think I actually liked that rule. It helped me growing up. And so we implemented that rule. We talked about it, and I don't think Jen was fully on board with it because she had a much more free-flowing youth in growing up. But
there's some classics that are PG-13.
There are a lot of classics.
And I was like,
dang.
So anyway, we had our own turtle, but I think I won on that one. And
you did.
Or I thought I won. And so we had that for many years for our kids growing up. And as our oldest three were teenagers and kind of going through that, they kind of pushed back a bit on that. And it created almost an experience for me where I had to reflect on, why do we have this rule? They were asking.
And because they would talk to me about it. And the problem is I didn't feel as committed to the rule. So I'd say, you have to talk to your dad about that. And so it was something that was trickier because I was trying to embrace the family rule. And I did feel good about that because I didn't need my kids going to see PG-13s and things when they were 11 and 12 and whatever. Right. But this is when they were getting 14, 15, and we still stuck with PG-13. No. And they wanted to go to movies with their friends, and their friends were going, good, strong Christian or LDS friends. And so then it would be kind of like this dad versus mom, good cop, bad cop, which doesn't always play out well. And so I default them to him. And then, So
anyway, they asked why. And I didn't have a good enough reason other than because I said so. And it made me reflect on, is that what are we teaching them by having these rules that are more focused, rule-based parenting versus principle-based parenting, and helping them to make these decisions so that they can make decisions on their own about what matters most to them. And so we ultimately had a lot of discussions around it, and we changed our perspective. We got rid of the rule, but we focused on the principle of it. What are the principles that we're trying to do? We actually had a family council with the kids, and we said, if we're going to change this rule, it's free flowing. You can go see whatever you want. That's not the point. What's the principle? And so together we, in council with the For Strength the Youth Guide and those types of things, we kind of just said, what's our new family rule? And it was very principle based. Every movie had to be reviewed by mom and dad. And there were certain things that were non-negotiables, and there were certain things that were okay. And we determined it as a family, and they bought in. They agreed to it. And then there was zero need to enforce. It was a built-in accountability. They knew what we were going to do. They had agreed to it. And so we learned from that. And then it made us reassess other rules that we had. What's the point of these rules, and how do we help them become better prepared so when they leave the home, they're able to think about the patterns for making righteous and good decisions. And anyway, that's just one example, but that's an area where I think over time we changed our perspective. And
it was a big learning area for us.
And we learned from it. Yeah.
I think that's excellent. Like, what a win. For both sides, like the kids felt heard and listened to, and they felt like they were a part of the process, but they also learned that, there is a reason behind the rule, but we can have a little bit of leeway too. Like, I think if we can address more of our rules that way, I feel like it would be a lot healthier for the relationships. If there's no why behind a rule, kids are probably not going to feel good about following them. They're going to not want to do that. But I also think for the Strength of Youth guide has kind of like loosened up a little bit. That was a great precursor to it, like letting them kind of use their own judgment. So I think that's a huge win for the family. We didn't
get rid of all the rules. We have rules and different things. And
we kept until you're 13, it's still a hard fast. There's no reason. And that's a guideline set by the movie industry. So
right. Yeah.
No. But then once you get past that, and recognizing, okay, is this child more sensitive to violence or language, or what are areas that kind of drive the spirit away from this child? Those are the movies that, okay, you don't need to see that. You don't need to hear that. That's going to influence you negatively. So, but
in our discussions with each of our kids, they've agreed to that.
Yeah.
It resonated with them. They knew what affected them more than others. And they were okay helping us kind of come up, well, how do we do this together so that in the home we're getting along, but we're also trying to do our best to improve and follow not just rules, but principles that'll help us.
For another thing on ours that was tricky parenting wise was the athletics on Sunday, because I grew up actually as a whole teenager. I was a competitive baton twirler. And so our competitions were Sundays. And my mom was very faithful at going to church on Sundays. Even though my dad didn't attend, he was super supportive of it. And so even when we had our competitions on Sundays, we would make a point, if there was a church nearby, she would search it out. This is before internet, but she would find a church. She would arrange so that we would, on our lunch break, go and take the sacrament and then zip back to our competition and whatever. So that was something, but there were a lot of weekends that didn't happen. But I felt like I was able to learn and navigate fine. We weren't a big push of, Sunday sports all the time. But when we got married, I was kind of more, I turned out okay. I'm fine. I have a testimony. It didn't rock my world, but he was like, absolutely not. And I was like, oh, okay. And so I adopted that. And that's what we told our kids. And again, that was one that we could explain to them, no, this is a family day. You tell your coaches, you tell your friends, this is a day for our faith and our family. And that is important to us. And it's a day off. And you need to recognize that. We would incorporate things like, we don't want you to do homework on Sunday. Take a break, use it and learn how to have that Sabbath day. So our kids did, honestly, I would say, really pretty well. We had some pushback sometimes, but honestly, they liked having that rule so that they could have the excuse. Now, when our boys played club lacrosse, it was a little harder because they would have a lot of games on Sundays. But most of the time, they would just be like, I'm really sorry, team. And they'd feel badly. And sometimes it was tricky because some of the other LDS kids would play. And so it was just, I'm sorry, this is our family rule. It's a faith and family day, However, when Cooper, our middle child, he was playing lacrosse, his team was doing really well. And we went to the state champs and we were down Houston. I can't remember. I think it was in Houston. And his coaches said, there were a couple LDS kids on the team at the time, and they pulled them all aside and said, you either need to commit to playing the whole weekend tournament because the state championships would be on Sunday. We knew that. And it's either you commit now or I'm pulling you for the weekend because I can't have you in for most of it. And then because they were all starters, all those, there were 3 LDS kids, I think, and they were starters. And so he's like, I need to know before. And so Cooper came to us and really wanted to play. And Jay was more hard, fast, like, no, we have never done that. And I was kind of like, hang on, let's talk about this. So we pulled aside, talked, and decided Cooper was old enough. He was a junior. It was time for him to make that decision. And we would support him regardless. And he prayed about it. And he made the choice with his other teammates, LDS teammates, that they would play, that this was the one exception. While we were down there, and it was a little harder for you. I think you were serving as bishop at the time.
Mm-hmm.
And you were like, I don't want to support this. I don't want to go to the game. Like, this is hard. And I said, if our kid decides to do this, we're all in. We are supportive. So we all went down as a family to the game. And we made sure we all found a 9:00 church. We went to church sacrament. The boys had to zip back for practice for warmups because they did make the state champs. So we went to practice. They were in the championship game. They zipped back. You know, the team's out in the parking lot of the hotel, and here come the boys in their white shirts and ties, and they're like, we're coming. And they changed their clothes. And Cooper was he was almost feeling, I'd say, a little bit like 50-50. Like, I'm glad I kind of won this. Like, I kind of got my way. But in a way, he said, in retrospect, he felt off about it. He just didn't feel great. So they went out and they played the game, and they had the worst game they had ever played. And he played probably his worst he'd ever played. And he came off that field, and we were like, oh, like, we felt bad for him. And they were supposed to win this game. And they were really like, so, and he came off and away from the team. And he was like, I will never do that again. I learned my lesson. And we were like, okay, lesson done.
Wow.
And will that happen for every kid? No. But in his situation, he learned for him. He tested it. He did it. I think it was maybe kind of one of those answers of you choose. God was like, you decide. And not that God cursed him, but he just didn't feel his best. And for him, he recognized, no, the Sabbath day was more important to him. Anyway, I think that was a big learning lesson for us as well in helping
I think we could have easily said, no, we're not going. We're not driving you there. You're done.
Yeah.
And then he likely would have resented us for it and found other ways and argued about it. And to this day would probably be telling us that we ruined his life. Right? He's the one that still tells us we ruined his life by moving from California to Texas 20 years ago.
When he was 3.
Yeah, when he was 3. So we learned a lot from it, just as parents, of letting them decide, letting them choose.
And letting the consequence go. Like we often say, like, natural consequences. Let the consequence flow. Whether that ends up good or bad consequence. It's not always a bad consequence, right? But just make your decision, pray about it, and then go with it and see what happens, and then learn from it. Yeah. Was that good?
I love that.
Not? Should I tweak it? Should I not,
Yeah. I mean, that's a lesson he's learned for life now, because you guys gave him the opportunity to follow through and make a decision on his own. So I think that's huge. I think that sometimes we do need to kind of step back and support our kids. Like, he approached it prayerfully. He knew what the standard was. He did it anyway. And then, I mean, even if he'd won, I'm sure there would have been a lesson in there somewhere for that too. So I really appreciate those examples. Thank you, guys. You mentioned moving to California and how Cooper was like, you ruined my life. Are there any other like pivotal moments, like experiences that your family had that kind of changed the trajectory of things for a particular child or for the family as a whole?
I would say for us, moving from California here, that was it was hard to leave our friends in California. And I grew up in Southern California. It was home for me. We were just coming to Texas for a couple of years, and now we've been here 20.
Surprise.
And I love it. I love it here. I wouldn't move back right now. This is where we need to be. And I love it. But I'd say we lived in a smaller subdivision initially. And after 4 years, we moved out onto our property, which has 5 acres. And we did that intentionally with the idea that we wanted to teach our kids how to work and how to work land, and in whatever way. Like, we didn't have enough that it was like a big working ranch kind of thing, but it was enough that our kids all had to pitch in and really do. We've never hired a gardener. Like, we had them always they do all the yard work and all the mowing and that kind of thing. And getting animals. Now we have chickens, and Quentin, our youngest, is in charge of taking care of the 25 chickens and, selling the eggs and doing all that maintenance. Like, we felt very strongly that teaching our kids the value of work was something we really needed to do. And in our situation, we felt we wanted to teach them the value of like manual labor, because especially with boys, we feel like that's a great way to teach them the principle of work. Both of us came from hardworking families, and that was kind of a huge thing for us. We did not want lazy children. Like, that was, and some just naturally start that way and just default to that setting. And so we had to incorporate ways to help them reset that setting a little bit. Like, sorry, you may want to be lazy, but that's not going to work.
I think that's natural for everyone, right? Just an object at rest wants to stay at rest, right?
Yeah.
Like, that's Newton's laws of physics. But
right.
Have you seen those lessons, the manual labor thing? How have you seen that as your kids have developed? Like, have you seen that pay out in their adult lives?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I think all of our kids, our oldest he's a pilot in the Air Force, and he thrives in work environments. And he basically sought out, I think, in some extent, the military because of the hard work, how hard it is. Mm-hmm. And he loves that.
He's not afraid of it.
And he doesn't want easy either.
Okay. And this is a funny little yard part of it. Like, our kids hated the yard work. Like, it was so much work all the time. And especially in hot Texas, mowing the yard every week was the worst, right? And we're out there, and it's not like 20 minutes.
Put it in context. We're out there about 4 to 5
hours every Saturday,
every week,
right?
Doing the yard.
And now he's in military housing, right? And they live in a cute little 3-bedroom on base, and it has this tiny little backyard that's fenced in. And all the other yards in Del Rio, Texas, it's just brown and dirt. And he has overseeded that little lawn in his backyard, and he takes great pride. He was out there weeding when we were down there 2 weeks ago. He gets the mower that they rent, and he mows that little lawn. Like, he loves his little yard, and he's just
love that.
It's what I can take care of. But I honestly think some of that is instilled from the God's creation. Like, this is your property. This is yours to care for.
Our second son too, he was probably a little bit more on the, I'm not going to say lazy, but free flowing, and really pushed against the work, and he would hide from it, whatever you could do, right? Especially with multiple kids running around. You're like, wait, where is he? But boy, he learned. And I don't think he recognized how much he learned in creating patterns of being outside, working, getting things done, not quitting until the job is done, and ultimately over time learning how to do it. If you're going to do it right. And I think that has panned out in his life right now in terms of his job, in terms of what he does for a living, and in his family with his grandson and our grandson, his son. And I just think he learned from it. And now we have our third son that's also a pilot and is going into the Air Force. And he also has very similar, sentiments around work. And, even in our younger two, probably two of the best workers you'll ever find. And I'll put my 14-year-old up against any other 14-year-old in terms of getting something done that nobody wants to do.
And he'd probably beat my 14-year-old.
Yeah. And I just think it's been fun to watch. And I think as parents, we look back and go, they always complained. Yeah. And it was hard. And we were pulling teeth just to get them outside.
We were complaining in our head too, as we were sweating,
we didn't like it either.
Too.
And then looking back and seeing what hard workers they are, it's like,
worth it.
Absolutely worth it.
Yeah.
Okay, that's where my next question's coming from. Like, we have our few acres too, and we've had the kids out, picking up sticks and trying to clear the property and things like that, but it always ends up in a fight.
Oh, yeah.
But I think you guys typically were out there with them for the 4 to 5 hours. I think that makes a huge difference. Like, if we're not willing to go out there and work at all, like, they're going to be less incentivized to do it. I think they need to see the work modeled. I don't know. Is that what your experience has been?
100%. So when it comes to the yard, Jay's typically the superintendent of all lawn and I'm flower beds. So I would often and it kind of was a hierarchy. So the oldest got the riding lawnmower. The next would often help with the weed eating with Jay. And then the middle would do the push mower because we have the backyard that we don't do the riding mower with. And then often the youngers were helping weed. And then as people have left, then it goes down, right? And so now Eva's on the riding mower, but Quinn's learning it and he has to push mow and stuff. But we're out there working with them and doing it with them. And I think that definitely takes the sting away, because if I'm sitting on my couch in the backyard drinking a nice cool Diet Coke and saying, "Get to work, kids," that's not really instilling in them a love for the hard work. Like, we all worked together. And then once we got our pool, then it's like we jump in the pool and we play. And we do strongly believe in hard work, hard play. Like, we play hard and we love to play, but we get our work done first. And that's another thing, I guess, in that we've instilled is, yes, we all want to play and we want to do fun things and there will be the reward at the end, but we're going to get our work done first. Like, let's work hard, play hard. So
I love it. I love it. I think that might be the biggest gem from our conversation so far. I think it's so important. And I think that it's just such, our natural tendency is not working hard. And I think it is developed over time. And as parents, we can help facilitate that. So I think you guys have done an incredible job there.
I think that's definitely a generational thing that's in over every generation has gotten. I mean, you think of our grandparents and great grandparents. I mean, you worked or died. And now life is easy. You can sit and have everything delivered to you. And so it's so important to keep that and teach our kids the value of work, that's what God wants from us. He wants to see us working hard.
Okay, we just talked about teaching work ethic. Do you consider that to be your greatest strength in parenting? Or is there something else that you feel like you guys did even better?
I'm still not sure we did it really great, but we worked on it. We were intentional.
We were intentional.
I think for us, I still feel like we're learning. We're not we didn't master anything.
No.
I do feel like, I think one of the things that I think we did well, and I think work is part of it, but I think we were very good about setting up discipline, structure, that, like on the work side, being if we're going to ask them to do it, we're going to do it. Let's get out. Let's do that. Let's show them how it's done over and over. And when you're doing that, you can give feedback. You can help them learn from it. You see who started the fight. You're in the middle of it. And my part, I personally feel that, look, our homes are our laboratories for how we learn, how we grow. That's why we're in families, in my mind, in the family unit and in the home. It's our laboratory of where we're going to learn, where we're going to grow, where we're going to get reprimanded, where we're going to get punished, where we're going to have joy. All of it is in our home and in our family. And so I think we've done not a great job, but we've been very intentional around
and as good as we could
creating that structure and that discipline around what we are trying to do as a family. We want to be together in eternity, period. That's our goal.
We want them to want to be together.
And we want them to want to be together. And we want it to be a sense of joy for them as well. And we recognize that in creating that it will be a struggle. And we are going to be at odds with each other. But I think that discipline and that structure, I think we've done a good job. I think we learned as part of that to be flexible with that discipline and that structure as well. But I think work and other things, that's all kind of it comes from that.
I just thought of one other thing that I think that we have focused on is when our kids were little and all that, is focusing on family first. Friends are great, but friends are second. And we always encouraged our kids to support one another in whatever activities they were doing. And they would grumble that they had to get drugged, especially those younger ones had to get drugged to every game, every basketball. And he coached a lot of them because he wanted to be that positive influence and be involved. And we would all go. And I know there's some families, they're like, oh no, let the other one stay home, whatever. But that was something super important to us. We drug everyone to every game, every activity, every art show, every musical event, whatever it was, no, that's a command performance. Unless you have a job or something that you conflicts, friends don't come first. You support your family. There was a lot of grumbling with that at times, but I think we now see the payoff. Our kids love being together. And that, I think, is the biggest payday for us as parents. I mean, our oldest, like we said, is military. And he is bummed he doesn't get to come up this next week and see his brother sing in the Millennial Choir concert because it's a midweek concert and he can't get away from the base. And he is bummed. And then we can't bring the youngest down for his what's called drop date when he learns this Friday what plane he's going to be flying for the rest of his career. He was so excited for everyone to come, but now it's been changed in the date. And so we can't take the kids down because they have responsibilities. They have to stay. To see them, they're like heartbroken that they can't be there. Like that to us is a huge win, that our kids love being together. When they all can get together, it's their happiest time. And I think that is a huge one that I would give advice to parents of younger kids. It is worth dragging your kids to everything because it teaches them to love and support each other over everything else. And that will pay dividends later.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's a great testament to just the family culture, the fact that they love and want to be together and support each other. I think that's something we all strive for. On the subject of friends, how important do you think the role of your kids' friends was in their upbringing? Like, how much influence did friends have?
I think friends always have influence, right? I mean, I think it goes both ways. I think we have friends that have helped us from a parenting perspective. We look at what they do. We look at how their kids have turned out. We look at challenges that they've gone through and how they're handling and struggling through that. And I think we learn from that. And similarly, our kids, their friends, they absolutely a huge impact. We've gone through with several kids where over time they may not have chosen the best friends, or they thought they had good friends and realized that their friends didn't really think of them as their good friends, right? And kind of, I think that's a struggle in raising kids and youth and who really are your friends. And so, yeah, but I think they've impacted both positively and negatively. The people who you associate with and who you hang around are going to be influences in your life. And we've tried to teach our kids that and model that. And as well as there have been a few times where we've had to step in and say,
they're not a good influence. You need to take a break.
They're not really your friend.
Yeah.
And I know that's hard to hear, but you need to step back because they're really not interested in you as much as they are in pulling you along with their choices. Mm-hmm. And so that's been hard for our kids to kind of figure out. But yeah, absolutely influential.
How did those conversations go? Like how did you prepare for that? Or how was it received by the child? Like when you did feel like you needed to step in and be like, we need to really consider this friendship. Like, tell me a little bit more about that.
I'll just say, I think similar to kind of the other experiences we've shared, we've learned when we talk about things with any of our kids that we want them to be a part of the conversation. We don't want it to be, we're telling you this and here's what you need to do. It's, what do you think about this friendship? And how do you like the way that it's going? Do you feel confident in that friendship? And very clearly, all of our kids have very quickly did their own assessment and kind of understood that what we were bringing up and talking to them about, they had already felt that way. and they had already knew it was happening, but didn't want to pull themselves away.
Scared to make the decision.
Because everybody wants somebody. Even if they're not your greatest friend, you still want to be liked and people want to be around you and things like that. So, but I think all of our kids in those situations, when we were having those types of discussions, it was very amicable between everyone. I think our son or our daughter they understood it and recognized it, knew it was something they did to do. And so then the conversation shifted from bringing out something and talking about it to how can we as mom and dad support you in this? Mm-hmm. Can we give you some advice? Can we talk about it with you around how you might pull back without kind of seeming, conceited or in other ways? And so that's where the dialogue changed a bit. But I would just say the way you have those conversations, even with our youngest, even when he was little, those conversations and even around the family rules and all that, it's now we do a lot of, here's what's happening. Here's what we need to do. We need to create some type of a rule around this. How do we do it? We need your thoughts. We need your input. And we're going to do this together. And so then it's more of a consensus. And the same goes when talking about friends. We're there to support, but we want them to learn to make that decision for themselves and understand what they need to do about it.
I think one of the things that we've noticed, at least I notice, like when they come home from school and they're really grumpy or something like that, if I see a pattern with that, sometimes I'll pull the kid aside and be like, okay, I need to know who you're hanging out with. And I'm pretty blunt. I'm a blunt person. And I'll just be like, who are you hanging out with? Because your personality is changing and I don't like the way it's affecting you as an individual. You're not being nice to me. You're not being nice to your siblings. Something's changed. Who are you hanging out with? And then a lot of times it'll whittle down. Well, so-and-so is, treating me this way. And so then they react with a similar behavior towards siblings or what have you, right? And so it kind of, I think, being in tune with the way your kids are behaving and kind of trying to help them dig it out, because they may not realize that they're behaving in such a way because of the people they're hanging out with. And so just helping them recognize, like, you need to pay attention. Something's off. And if it's so-and-so or somebody that you're hanging out with, you need to look at that through, because, through clear glasses, because often we look at those friends in rose-colored glasses and they look a lot better and then they're changing you. And it's like, no, you need to take a step and look at that when you are at school again tomorrow. And if it's not a good environment, you need to change it. You have the ability to change it. You're going to figure that out. And sometimes kids feel stuck. They're in my class, they're in my sports, they're in my football, they're doing it. Yeah, but you still have a choice to completely interact with that person or be polite, but you don't have to be their bestie. You don't have to, we always tried to teach our kids, like, you need to be cordial and polite to people. Absolutely. But you don't have to be everyone's best friend, because if they're going to pull you down, you need to distance yourself from that.
Awesome. Thank you. You guys discussed the movie ratings and what would be appropriate. And you had discussions about friends. How often is this like a family council type thing? Is this something you are deliberate about having regular conversations, like check-ins? How does that work in your house?
We have regular check-ins, but they're probably more informal.
Yeah, not like every Monday. Now, I remember when we had the 4, I don't think we had Quinn because it was in our other house, and the others, and they were in that stage of tattling and bugging and whatever. And I remember that box, and I found it recently, and it says family complaints. And they could write their complaint and put it in the box. And then we would address it on family night. And that's when we were pretty great about every Monday. We'd do a little family night and we would pull out the family complaint box, and you could leave it anonymous. Of course, you always knew who wrote what, but and then we would address it and we would talk about it in a non-contentious way. Like, this is a problem. How are we going to address this? And I think our kids felt validated, like their concerns were heard. We did that for a period of time. Like anything though, you do things in stages and then things whittle out, right? But I do remember
the complaints probably started to trickle away. Yeah.
And now with just 2 at home, I think it's more little conversations here and there. It's very informal. Whereas I think before it used to be
A little bit more of a structure.
more structured, right?
I think too. And we do have family councils from time to time, but we don't do it on a consistent basis per se.
Just when.
But our kids know when we schedule a family council, we're going to talk about something. And we often use our family councils not just for things we need to do better, but we do it around vacations where we'll talk about a trip we're going to take together. We want their input. Where do they want to go? What do they want to do? We want them to be a part of the decision of, since it is a family vacation and not just a mom and dad vacation, we're pulling the kids along. So we do councils like that as well, where we're talking to them about getting their input and making decisions that affect our family around what we do and how we do it, as well as the rules and the other things that we want to have a discussion on for our family.
On the subject of vacations, you said you guys work hard, play hard. How has family vacations like factored into your lives? How much of a priority is it?
We love to travel. We like to play.
Yeah.
That's a big part. Since we moved to Texas from California, we have gone back every summer and spent different lengths of time back in California with my mom and sisters in Newport Beach. And that has been a tradition we have established that is something that our kids, like, it's a non-negotiable. I mean, for us, there was one year that we were like, I don't know if we can make it work. And they're like, no, revolt. Like, we're going without you then. And then just setting up other fun vacations. Like, we wanted to teach our kids how to ski. I grew up skiing, snow skiing. He did not. I taught him when we were first dating and engaged. And that was something we decided we wanted to teach our kids. So since we've never lived in really a snowy state, we have taken vacations almost every February, most of the time to Utah, but other places too, to ski. And we put our kids in lessons skiing and snowboarding so that they can learn. And now that is something that they continue to love to do. And it's something we've done as a family. We've also liked to camp because, again, it kind of gets us away from things. Like, I think that's the biggest thing with our vacations is removing all the other distractions and just intentionally being together. And like, we've done some RV trips that were really fun, and we did get their input. Like, where do you want to go? And then he kind of planned the whole thing, just that quality time together. That is a biggie for our family. Like, we love that quality time together and getting away from the day in, day out busyness and getting to just hang out and have fun.
Yeah. I think a couple points. Kids they don't care about how much you spend on a vacation. They care about their involvement in the vacation and the experiences that they're having. And so when they look back and they think about some of our greatest vacations, most of them were camping. And although Jen doesn't really like to camp at all, they were outdoors and we weren't spending a lot of money, but we were hiking, we were exploring, we were mountain biking. We were doing things together as a family and experiencing new things as a family. And when we travel to different places, and it's the experiences that they're having and the excitement of it. And I would much rather, as a parent, expose them to travel and to all the different fun things in life as a family than having them not have those experiences and then just have experiences elsewhere. To me, that dilutes the impact of the family. The family is this laboratory. Well, not only do we need to teach them to work and to do all these things and to be obedient, blah, blah, blah. We need to teach them how to have fun. And we need to teach them what joy is and how to experience new things and how to develop their own personal experiences and their patterns that they follow through in their thought and how they make decisions. So I think that has been very critical of us, of creating that experience on family vacations. And again, having them participate in the planning of it, where do they want to go? What do we want to do as a family? They are invested. They're a part of it. And even though it may not have been the first, we have a trip coming up to Europe with our daughter, Eva, and Quinn, our youngest.
Her senior trip. We do a senior trip.
Yeah, we've done a senior trip with each of our kids. They pick a continent. They pick 3 cities on that continent. We go and they plan it. And so Eva has planned out, and there was one city she picked that we were, okay.
Okay.
She wants to do it, so we're going. So
Which city?
We're going to Prague.
Prague.
Okay.
Yeah. And we were like, all right.
Never
And
been.
now, and literally like, well, with the other boys, like they kind of picked their places and then we kind of plan the itinerary and all this. And Eva is our planner and we did the accommodations and the travel, like the transportation. She has planned our whole thing. I don't even think we know exactly what we're doing every
Be
day.
surprised.
And it's great. Like, and that was, I would say, another thing with traveling, even throughout the US and such, we feel very strongly about exposing our kids to other cultures, other ways of life, whether it's living better, living harder than us and such, but also just exposing them to the world around them, I think is super huge. Like we had a foreign exchange student for 9 more months from Germany who ended up being like another child to us. Like he's amazing and has become such great friends with our kids and we're still in contact with them all the time. But for them to bring another person from a whole nother country into their home and his culture and how we were able to embrace him and he could embrace our culture, like exposing them to that and not being afraid of that. I think so many people live in fear of people different from themselves. And that is something we've wanted to help our kids get over, that we embrace that everybody's God's child and there's so much we can learn from everybody else. And if we just go to where they are, we can learn so much from everyone. And there's little tidbits you can take home with you that'll make you better.
That's awesome. Your comment is so funny. Currently, my German exchange student from high school is visiting us. They're here for like 2.5 weeks. She shared my bedroom with me my entire sophomore year of high school. And now she came out to celebrate her 40th birthday. And so it's really cool, the impact that this can have. I went and visited her back in like 2007 and got to see Germany and France. And I don't know, it's a great way to kind of expand your horizons and realize, there's more than one right way to live on this earth. There's a lot of good everywhere. And the more exposure we can get to different cultures, the more we can recognize like just how amazing this whole world is. I did want to ask, traveling with your children who are now married and have kids, like how does that factor into family vacations? Like how do you guys navigate that?
We're just getting into that. That is kind of new. For example, like going to California, we're now telling our married kids if they can make it and they can financially pay for it, they're more than welcome to join us. But we're not paying for their airfare and all of that stuff. That's something they need to save up for and that kind of thing. If there's a specific,
if there's a specific need, then we will help. But
yeah,
I think we feel very strongly. I came from a home, we weren't very well off. We had what we needed, but we weren't very well off. But we spent several weekends a year cleaning buildings in order to make extra money for the holidays, right? So to me, nothing comes easy. And we help our kids through college, but we don't pay for everything. We make them work and get jobs, and we never give our kids a car. It's a family car. They get to use it. And I think similarly on the vacations, it has kind of flowed through of, well, what are the principles we want to continue with our married kids? And it is around that of, we want to plan this vacation, for example, and we want to do it. We have a family reunion coming up at Thanksgiving down in Mexico. And I think very similar principles of we want to give them enough time to be able to save for that. If they want to come, they'll save for it. And so we want to give them a few years to be able to prep and plan for that. And all of them are coming.
Yeah.
And they're all making
their sacrifices. So one of our kiddos said just barely in our last family call, they were like, hey, they were going to go with all the siblings to Newport Beach. My mom owns a house out there and she was offering it up to the kids, and different from our week that we're going in the summer because one of our daughter-in-laws will be pregnant and can't travel then. So she's like, hey, if anyone can come in May, that's great. And our second son and his wife and little boy were planning on doing that. But then they sat down and budgeted and they told us in our call, you know what, as much as we want to do that, we want to go to this. It's my whole side family reunion in Mexico. And they had to make a choice. They couldn't afford both. They've got a mortgage. They've got a lot going on. And they chose, they're going to go to Mexico. And that's where they're going to put their money. Now, could we step in and say, oh, we want you to go with your kid, with your siblings, with your brothers and meet them in Newport? Here, we'll gift you some tickets. We could. We feel like, no, they've made a very important choice. Like, it's hard, but they're not going to die if they don't go to Newport Beach right now, and it's good for them to learn that they can't do everything. They've got to figure out where they want to spend their money and what they want to do. But one thing we have with new married adult kids, it's a new chapter, and navigating. But one thing we both really feel strongly about is not having our kids feel guilt or forced to do anything. Like, we put things out there, and if you can join us, great. But if not, we totally understand. Or, we provide opportunities for things, but we don't want them to feel badly, or we don't want them to break the bank either. So navigating that kind of thing, we're just new on it. We haven't really done, we've tried to plan, if it's a big family vacation, something where we know it doesn't cost a ton for them to come. Say, like, we've done a lake house. We pay for the lake house, and it's in Texas, and our marrieds live in Texas, so they can drive there, so we're trying to make it doable.
Definitely something to consider as the kids are growing up, because travel is something that's really important to us. And we feel like, sharing those experiences is part of what is going to bond us, when Chris and I are a little bit less stressed out about things going on at home or work, and we're able to be away and enjoy time with the kids. Like, they get to see, oh, mom and dad are actually kind of fun too, like, they don't mind being around us so much. We're not telling them to clean their room or whatever. So I do think that traveling together is important, and I want to do it as they're grown. So I think those are really good concepts to keep in mind. What do you think the ratio of nature versus nurture is in raising your children? How much is nature and how much is nurture? And you just, out of 100%, what do you think? You can tell me individually, actually, because it's kind of funny.
I view a lot of things in thirds. So I think it's a third nature, a third nurture, and then the middle third is what you make of it. And you can be very intentional and let nature take over, or you can be very intentional on nurturing and guiding and enabling from a parenting perspective. So that's how I view it, kind of the third, because I don't think anybody knows what it is, but there is absolutely the nature of the individual and the personality and who they are as a human being and a spirit. But then there's definitely the nurture of the environment that they live in, who their influences are, who is around them, how people communicate with them, how they get that nature reinforced to them. And then I think there's a very intentional middle ground of they can sway in a number of different ways. And I think as parents, it's recognizing the nature and nurture, but in that middle ground of taking the nature of who they are and making sure that they identify the greatest attributes of who they are and why they're special and how they can give to the communities around them and to the people around them and be who they are, but also the nurture side of become who they're supposed to be. And I think that's awesome as parents to be able to think about our kids and who are they supposed to be. And we're just kind of playing a mere role in that laboratory and a part of them. And we're learning just as much as they are from us. But I tend to think about it in those types of frameworks.
Yeah, I honestly don't think we've ever really talked about it, but I would totally agree with that. Like, I think that even in your own family, where you're born in your lineup, like our oldest versus our youngest, or even our middle child, their position in the family changes some of the dynamics of how, we parented and, having different siblings around them, like that nature part, but it's also kind of a nurture part. I think it's very intertwined, but I also don't believe in like how you are nature born is how you're stuck, because I believe in progression. I believe that's the most important thing that God wants to see in all of us is progression. Whether you start on a dirt floor in Africa or you were born into a wealthy family in America, he wants to see you become a progressed individual, someone who has grown and taken the world around them and become a better person. And so I think that's where I like that whole concept of that middle third of what you do with it. You can't really, I don't like to default in because of what my parents did. This is da da da. Parents are doing the best they can. We're all figuring it out. There is no manual. There's no guidelines. We're all trying to learn at the same. And some parents aren't always doing the best job or giving their kids the best environment. But I don't think there can always be an excuse too of blaming the parent. I think there is that individual that can choose to rise above, right? And become the best person they can be despite their environment that they grow up in. And some are just born with more physical or emotional or mental challenges and navigating all of those things. And we feel very strongly to just help them, give them, I think one of the most important things for parents is that our job is to give our kids the tools in their tool belt. And not all tool belts look the same. Not all kids need the same tools. Some are going to be going out to do different things than others, and you have to figure out what tools they need.
I really appreciate that, you guys. I appreciate how much thought you put into your answers. I feel like there are just so many things that I can go and implement in my own life. I think you guys are amazing, and I love all of your kids. Like, they are just such great people. I'm grateful for you both.
Likewise.
Well,
Thanks, Jesse.
Thank you.